Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a roster video. This, I believe, is our fourth one, and the topics are going to be generally as follows. I didn't make this as universal as I thought I did, but the general structure here is what's going on. Major projects, not necessarily unlocks this week. The overall progress towards the next GL, which is Leia in this case. Nothing with Datacrons or Omicrons, but we would generally address that. And then we'll be developing out things looking forward into the future, things to prep. That's going to be raids and the pilots, and then addressing any weaknesses that I've been finding as I utilize my roster throughout the Grand Arena periods. And for this roster video, we are back a little bit early. Generally, I like to give these room to breathe every 2 to 3 weeks, but we're back here after a week of development because we have some meaningful changes that we need to integrate into our roster before the next Grand Arena period. And this week we begin with the Leviathan. I unlocked it last month, but with everything it took to get it ready for the unlock the second time around, I was pretty depleted on crystals, so we had to make do with a 4-star Leviathan for around a month. But during that month, I was able to hoard up a lot of crystals that we needed to be able to take it to 6 stars this time around. And I think what I should add some light on is that concept of hoarding. Here's how I like to handle the refreshes during a hoarding period. I stay on top of all of my farms. That meant Rex here got a 25 and 50 crystal refresh, and Princess Nisa, she also received 25 and 50 crystal refreshes. You can see that I already did those today, but here I do not refresh the light side and dark side energy during a hoarding period. I'm trying to reaccumulate crystals as quickly as possible, and if I'm refreshing energy that I don't need to, then that's going to impede my ability to gain those crystals quickly. Instead, I just rely on the daily energy. That's enough for 2 farms on a 60 and 80 energy node. Even slightly more than that. I'll also maintain refreshes on Cantina signal data. This is stuff where if you don't do the 300 crystal refreshes and you're in the late game, that is what you need to do to tread water. If you're not doing those refreshes, you're going to be falling behind. So you just can't ignore these. I ignored these for far too long. The Crate Dragon raid made it so that these are just mandatory. So those I did not skip. But all of the other energy during a hoarding period for crystals, I don't touch it. That's why even with getting the Leviathan, I was at 27k crystals before the event, dropped down to 15k crystals after the event, and now with Grand Arena's territory battles, we've already made up 4,000 of those crystals. So we're very quickly, and right around I think 22k crystals, I'm going to be done hoarding, and I'll then start refreshing more nodes, probably for the Chirotex here to get this one, but also to get materials that I can utilize for carbonate circuit boards. When I'm done farming Princess Nisa, I'll go after the Chiropods again, but I actually need more of these right now just because of I don't tend to supplement these with guild event tokens as much, and so I've been able to get ahead with the Chiropods a little bit more. So once in a few days, in less than a week, that I hit the target number of crystals that I want, then I'll start refreshing. And once I've shifted into that refreshing mode where I hit the fleet energy, the mod energy, the light side, dark side energy, I do that at a level where my crystal income stays greater than my expenses so that the numbers will still grow, albeit pretty slowly. So my Leviathan goes from being fairly weak, but it was pretty usable. It doesn't hold well, but I was able to utilize it on offense in Grand Arena and in Fleet Arena for climbing pretty effectively. We will take it up to 6 stars. But what I do with capital ships in general is I stop being aggressive with my refreshes at 6 stars. But that is a luxury of my Fleet Arena because yes, you do get targeted and fall if you have fewer stars, but I have an inactive fleet shard where I'm only going to fall to 20 at worst, and that's during a period when everybody has a Leviathan. Right now only 7 of us do, so I'm pretty stable within the shard, so that allows me the luxury to take my time on that final star. I know that doesn't apply to everyone, but if you do happen to be in a weak fleet shard, you don't need to be as aggressive. Like there's people in my shard with already 7-star Leviathans. I don't think it's necessary because usually on offense, even even on defense, these ships, the difference between 6 and 7 stars isn't huge unless you are in one of those super competitive fleet shards where you can't get crystals if you're in a deficient position. So moving forward, I'm going to do maybe 1 to 3 refreshes a month. I might be a little bit faster than I have been in previous capital ships, but I think that's just because I think I have the resources right now. That's something that I'll just make a determination based on how many crystals I have at any particular time. But right now, we'll take up all this, and will make a pretty nice difference to all the game modes. 7 stars, though, I guess one reason to rush it is for territory battles, because the Empire ships on the dark side route is rough going. But us free-to-play players, we have to pick and choose our battles, and that is one where I'm going to choose not to compete beyond this level. Last week, we unlocked and took Malicos up to Gear 12 for testing. Results were inconclusive because of how I happened to use them. The first battle, I threw them up against a Jabba just to see what would happen, and it was impressive how long they lasted, but they're not going to have any shot without relics. They're not going to have the damage output to take out a GL. I brought them up against a Melgus squad. That one I knew was going to fail, but I wanted to look at it. It was going to fail because of the mechanics involved, but SWGOH is already so good without Malicos that all the teams my opponent had placed on defense, there just wasn't anything to learn, so I decided let's just see what would happen up against Melgus. And what it taught me was what things are going to make Malicos fail, and anything that interrupts his protection up is going to shut them down pretty effectively. So the shock is what really did it. The shock just shut Malicos down, made him extremely vulnerable to being taken out easily, and SWGOH, this was the part that I was anticipating more. SWGOH is just not going to have the ability to one-shot characters because there's more characters on those squads that are resistant to health-based effects, and SWGOH's one-shot ability is a health-based effect. And in the third match, we used SWGOH and Malicos to help pick apart a Jabba squad in a second attempt after Night Sisters Marin softened them up. But with those kinds of results, I think I want to do more low gear testing. I will add a bunch of Gear 12 plus materials right now, but I don't think I'm ready to relic them up yet. I'll do that at the start of 3v3 because low gear testing is a singular opportunity. We can only go forward. So let's take a little bit of time right now and figure out what we can do at this level, see if they can do anything more than they already could, and figure out what other kinds of squads we can test them up against. But right now, I do have all the gear prepped and ready to start putting on these materials. This extra health will be very valuable. We'll throw this, we're going to throw on most everything. The only thing that I want to be a little bit more careful with right now is Kairos, because I'll show the progress on the spreadsheet in a moment, but the Kairos are the only thing that other than relic materials, that I don't have a sufficient amount of. So we'll throw this on. That'll make him tankier, hopefully make him a little bit more viable in terms of his offense. I would say at Gear 12, his damage output is just nowhere near where it needs to be valuable, but I also think there's some modding things that we can do. Since we started doing this series, I've been showing this spreadsheet where I track the various projects that I'm working on. The specifics don't matter. To give you a general idea though, this is the big 3 projects, which includes Malicos. We have Leia, a subtotal, Lord Vader, and some more subtotals. All that matters here is the colors, because the colors indicate what I still need to work on. And what you can see in terms of the big 3 and Leia, we do not have much more to work on other than signal data and basically the Kairos. And I'm trying to be a little bit careful with the Kairos because of that, because one of the things I'm trying to anticipate is the next project on the level of Afra and Starkiller. If the pattern holds, this is when we would start seeing the next equivalent type of character, and we could get marquees dropping over the next couple weeks to months in relation to that, which means I don't want to spend Kairos that I don't need to spend right now when we can spend those later, because being ready for Leia in advance when I still have farms to do has no benefit for my roster, but potentially gearing up a new marquee character that gets released is going to have some benefit towards my roster. But those big 3 again, Malicos, Third Sister, Cal Kestis, I do want to draw attention to them right now because after the last territory battle, here's what my Third Sister looks like. That means after the next one, in 2 weeks, I am going to have third sister, and I got to be ready to take her up right away. And we have to be ready for Cal Kestis because we are on Cal Kestis alert. It has been 3 months. That means he could show up as soon as the next update. His event could be brought back to the game, or he might show up in December if CG wants to pull another Grand Inquisitor kind of timeline. But we need to be ready for all those contingencies, so we're being a little careful with some of the Kairos this week. But we can still make plenty of progress towards Leia because we are done farming Captain Rex here. We will star him up, and I guess we have to. We don't have to, but we will take him up to gear 12. And we can safely put on all of the left side gear pieces. Actually, we can put on... I have all the gear pieces ready for all these characters because we are safely in the gray, like with the spreadsheet here, we are safely in the gray on all of these materials, like all of this we have sufficient hordes of. I even almost have enough for Lord Vader included, so I can safely on all these characters start placing all these right side pieces as well, even though it may or may not make a huge difference. But as I think about it, I'm just not really coming up with a good reason not to. Rex is pretty survivable though, like he's not going to be the character that dies. Even at 3 stars, he's not going to be the character that dies. He's got a very strong kit, but we'll add that stuff to him. I'm not going to take him up to relics yet. With Princess Nisa, we will be taking her up to 6 stars, which means we are about a month away from taking her to 7. Hopefully we get a bonus drops event soon. Or rather, I don't really want a bonus drop event until Scout Trooper and Captain Drogon get added. But what we can do is some of these characters, Lobot, Admiral Akbar, we can give these characters some resources. I'm not going to take any of these characters up to relics right now because I don't have the Kairos. But I do have all of this, and Lobot so far, he's been dying. It's just a sortie squad with how spare parts works. I think it's pretty critical that they are at relics. I think though we can make plenty of progress towards Leia. Just drop these pieces. There's no reason to hold on to them. And as we get closer on the Kairos, then I can start taking these characters up to relics. But I don't have major relic projects that I'm going to be doing in the meantime. And this will give me a better idea of how I can start budgeting my resources for other things now that I have these applied. So that is another step closer, and that's looking pretty good. Although while I'm here, I kind of feel like taking R2 up to relic 8. We've got everything I need for it. Let's just do it. That might be a little reckless because there's other things there are weaknesses in my roster that I would like to address, and signal data is what we are very low on, so that might be preemptive. Next item to address are the long-term preparation for various pilots and for the raid. Look through the raid characters. Ewoks I don't want to touch right now. My rebel characters are decent enough, and the troopers, I've got everybody at gear 12, so I'm kind of in a spot where I'm pretty satisfied until the raid shows up, and I think we're going to just look at a couple pilots. These are the only pilots I don't have at gear 12, and I think what we're going to do is take the Phoenix ones up higher, because Chopper we are using with Rex, and he has a lot of value there. Not going to touch any of those pieces. And same deal with Ezra, another pilot. We've got plenty of the back to... We're good enough. After last week, we're not in a great position with this stuff, so I need to be a little careful. But Phoenix, that's pretty safe, and he's already looking pretty good with Leia Organa. The other one I would like to use, or to take up higher, is Young Lando. The rest of these characters don't matter. And Imperial Super Commando and Gar Saxon, I don't want to take to gear 12. So that brings us to the final to-do item with this roster video, which is addressing larger weaknesses within my roster and projects, luxury projects that I've been wanting to work on. And a lot of these favorite characters are related to those, like Grief Karga, Mando. I'd like to make my Fennec counter stronger. That's something I've been wanting to do a long time. Iden, really wanted to make the TIE Defender stronger. Another thing those are things though that I'm still going to continue putting off. What I do want want to address today is Sabine. I'm going to add the Zeta because this is something that just has so much synergy with Rex. It just makes it a little bit better because it's adding staggers, cooldown manipulation. There's a lot of things here that is going to help, especially in the last match in Grand Arena. Sabine died in the opening salvo up against a Radis squad. I still beat it. It was a lot harder. The Zeta wouldn't change anything. I'd actually like to add some left-hand pieces that added health, but 250 health is not enough to start touching those Nubian scanners. So that's all we're going to do with Sabine, but that will at least improve the synergy over on that Rex squad. The next item I want to handle this week is over with BT1 here. There's a lot of characters here that I want to take to higher relics, make a lot of these special characters like Sith Eternal Emperor, Afra, Maul, Starkiller, all of these GL or Journey Guide level characters, take them higher. But really one of the things that I need is more reliability in my Lord Vader counters, and that's what Afra can do at the right levels, in particular BT1. So that's why he is going to get some attention right now. We're not going to go crazy. I don't have, like, you can see how quickly we're depleting these resources. So I'm only going to take him to Relic 7, and hopefully that allows us to do a little bit more up against some of the at least weaker Lord Vader squads. If this gets to the point where I can have more success, that's going to be a big win, because right now I'm not using my Afra to her full extent, and in order to do that, BT1 is like one of the major pieces, and that's going to largely take care of things this week. But I do want to touch upon a couple modding things that I did so you guys are informed, that and we'll be testing some of these theories as we move forward. One, Solo, I changed his mods from an offense set to a crit damage set, and that is because with this ability here, to get that one-shot capability, I want to see if crit damage is going to be a better option to make it a little bit more reliable to one-shot an opponent. Because even though this has a lot of stacking offense mechanics, what I kept finding was when I didn't one-shot my opponent was when I wasn't landing crits. So that's a theory that we're going to try to see if we can make this a little bit more reliable with a different mod set. The other thing that I've done here is, if you take a look at the speeds, I've changed the speeding, the turn order for my Sirjunda squad. I want to see, because of how her kit works with Determined Assault, has one-shot potential and is very valuable, and because of how her unique works here, where she is going to have her cooldowns increased by 1 when an ally takes a turn, and her cooldowns are decreased by 1 whenever an enemy takes a turn. So what I was hoping is, if she ends up being the first Unaligned Force user to take a turn, then that might mean that we have Determined Assault off of cooldown depending on the opponent we go up against. Also, overall, I just made them slower, because you want them to be as slow as possible based on her leadership ability, because they get stacking crit damage, offense, and crit chance until the end of the battle, until the ally's first turn. So you want that first turn to happen as late as possible. I did, though, in order to make Sirjunda go first, I did have to make her quite a bit faster. So we'll see if... What I think needs to happen is we need to make a determination on who is the optimal character on the Sirjunda squad to take the first turn. I think there might be some opportunity there, and that's why I've moved Sirjunda to the first spot, because I think she could be the one who's strongest. Okay, was that shorter? There was less stuff to do, so hopefully that was a shorter video, but I tend to get a little verbose, so maybe we stress this one out. We'll wrap this one up here, and we will be back sometime during the 3v3 season to address the rest of the roster progress that I make, and we'll wrap it up. Be excellent to each other, everyone. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.